Hello, hello, and welcome, or should I say ho, 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 Christmas cousins. I'm Cousin Chad. I am flying solo tonight because Cousin Seth, of course, is again somewhere jetting around the world from one villa to the next, and he forgot his podcast mic. Those eccentric billionaires, I'm used to it. You're used to it. It's just one of those things. But fear not. We have someone here that will almost make you forget about Cousin Seth, and that is a tough task. We have author, film critic, Christmas lover, and friend of the show extraordinaire, Alonso Duralde. Welcome, Alonso.
Thank you for having me, Cousin Chad. So sorry that Cousin Seth is somewhere across the international date line.
He really is. You would think on his private jet he'd get Wi-Fi by now, Alonso, but
some people just don't. They don't want to go with the extras.
You're right. Yes, he had the first 20 million, but not the last $100. That sounds typical. Yes, but thank you for joining. I know we're basically having you exclusive. You've done barely any podcasts lately, almost nothing, Alonso.
Yes, please tell the press. I can't. No, I must stay private.
That's right. But what we're going to try to do here tonight is uncover maybe some stuff that people haven't done yet. Maybe get some new information. You like Barbara Walter style. We're going to try to make you cry. That's my main goal here, Alonso. Yes.
Go for it.
Yes. But if you have ever wondered which of the Christmas movies basically are worth your eggnog or which belong in the fruitcake regift pile, look no further than Alonso Duralde's Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas. It is the ultimate festive film guide, currently revised and updated from the 2010 edition. It's filled with all these insightful intakes from beloved classics, some questionable holiday offerings, some funny ones, some horror. Basically, it's the book I should have assigned to Cousin Seth on day one of this podcast. I didn't. It's now available. So, Alonso, again, welcome back. And I really, first of all, I want to say, I am one of the few people I've gotten to meet both you and Cousin Seth in person. So I am feeling like in rarefied air, but it was wonderful getting to meet you this past summer at Bramblefest.
Yes, it was.
We shared some laughs. We shared some hugs. We shared potato chips, which were delicious.
It was a full service experience.
It really was, yes. And it was great getting to actually meet you in person after talking to you online, always listening to you for a long time. But I want to get into this because what's most interesting to me, yes, you wrote this book. It's revised and updated. Your original was in 2010, which, as you say in your book, Christmas movies, the cinema being as big as it is, wasn't as big as a thing. But before we get into that, you have a job that is awesome. You get paid to watch and review movies. And I'm thinking everybody out there, especially people who really don't like their jobs, are wondering, what is your own origin story? Let's get to the beginning. How did you first, just in terms of before film criticism, what were you doing to actually make you fall in love with movies in the first place?
Yeah, I was kind of obsessed with movies before I even really knew what they were. I sort of relate it to, I don't know if you've ever seen a movie called Searching for Bobby Fischer, but there's a kid in it who becomes like this genius, chess champion. But the first time that he sees like two old men in the park playing chess, he comes home and rebuilds a chessboard in his room using stuffed animals. Like, I don't know what that is, but I know I want more of it. It has to be part of my life. And so I was this kid where, like, as I was learning to read, I would read the listings in the newspaper of what was showing near my house, even though I wasn't even really going to movies yet, but somehow just the idea of them I found really thrilling. And, my mom liked movies a lot. She was a fan of like Humphrey Bogart and Clark Gable and stuff. And as a kid in the sort of pre-cable, VHS era, it was a thing where, you would scour TV Guide to see when certain movies might be coming on. Or like, I have a very vivid memory of being like 6 or 7 years old and being taken to this big theater to see Casablanca with my mom, so it was just always kind of in the background, but I don't think I was certainly never encouraged to make that my job. I have a very medical family. My dad was a doctor. All three of my brothers became doctors. One of my sisters. Now I have like various nieces and nephews who are in the profession. Wow. But yeah, this was never a thing that was like, oh yes, you should be a film critic. But it was just something I kind of locked onto pretty early.
So they were like, you should get a job and watch movies after work, not during work.
I literally remember having a conversation with my dad where he was like, well, couldn't you be a doctor and a film critic? And I was like, I mean, one could, but not me, you know.
Right.
He would always bring up like authors who were also MDs, like, well, Somerset Maugham was a doctor, and then he became like, yeah, that's great, Dad. I faint at the sight of blood. I am not going to become a doctor.
And you could counter him and say Dr. Zhivago or all the doctor movies. So you had an answer too.
Exactly. Yes. I'm coming in with this level of expertise from having grown up around all this stuff. Wow. But yeah, so, it just was this thing where I was really I was interested in it, and a college friend of my older sister remembers vividly like me watching Siskel and Ebert when they first came on the air, and I was 8. Wow. But I just was locked into like, oh, this is a job. This is a thing people do like for a living, for their career. I'm in. I want part of that. And so I was just that guy who was like writing movie reviews in my high school paper and writing movie reviews in my college paper, and just very much, devouring books I could get my hands on. My oldest brother went to Harvard in the 70s, where there was a big kind of revival of classic Hollywood stuff. So he came back with all these books about, Greta Garbo and MGM and Alfred Hitchcock or whatever. And again, this is an era where there wasn't cable television. There wasn't even like Entertainment Tonight. So it wasn't part and parcel that, you would see like the box office results in the Monday paper or whatever. Like if you were interested in stuff, you had to really go find it. And I would always kind of haunt that section of the library that had, the movie star biographies or kind of historical looks back at that kind of stuff. So I was very much sort of an autodidact for a big chunk of my life. I didn't take my first actual film class until my summer between junior and senior year of high school. I got to do this college program and take kind of a survey of cinema class that starts with D.W. Griffith and went all the way up to like the 60s probably.
Right. Wow. So you were self-taught up to a point, but then you did study it in college.
I did. And of course, I wound up at a college that didn't have a film school. So I made up a major. I took as many film classes as I could, but I also just kind of continued doing other stuff. Like I was writing reviews for the paper. I also was running the student committee that would program the cinema that we had on campus. And this was, again, we didn't have cable on campus yet. So people went to the movies a lot. And it kind of taught me sort of how to program a calendar, like Friday and Saturday nights would be sort of recent, blockbuster hits. And then we do like older movies, and then we do sort of new foreign films midweek. And I got, I was very hands-on. So I was planning out this grid of things. I was writing blurbs and writing them in a way that sort of, would entice undergraduates to want to come see whatever these movies were. And so those were skills that helped me out a lot. Certainly when I went into like the world of film festivals, where you have to think about like, where am I going to put this movie? Who's the target audience? I was just telling a story to somebody. I used to run a film festival in Dallas, and I learned like in the first year, never program a gay movie on Friday or Saturday nights.
Okay.
Because everyone is in the club. Everyone's out dancing. They're not going to come to a movie even early in the evening. So like Wednesdays, maybe, but like Friday and Saturday, forget it. And like I remember, having a conversation one time where we had a Jewish film that somebody wanted to program on a Friday night. And I was like, no,
that's not going to reach the intended audience.
Exactly. So just little details like that. So
great. You wouldn't think about that otherwise.
Yeah. So I learned a lot from just doing things that were not my coursework in college, because I was a terrible student. And I squeaked by to get a diploma. I think I was literally in the bottom 20 of my class. But having had all this experience writing the paper, doing the radio station, which was great training, certainly for podcasting. And then, doing the programming of the film schedule, gave me skills in different ways that have all proven to be really useful.
And that's interesting, right? Because back then it wasn't so fractured. If a movie came out, it was a bigger deal because we didn't have as many options like we would now. You couldn't stay home and watch cable or watch something streaming. It was just whatever the big movie was. So you're sitting here writing, you're doing all these things, but you're not necessarily making money. But at what point did you realize, oh my gosh, I could actually make a living writing about films and not have to have a second job? Or did it take a while? Did you juggle it?
I mean, I knew it was a thing. Again, like the sort of going back to Siskel and Ebert, like I knew that being a film critic was a career path and people did it. But the
Right.
question obviously was like, can I get that gig? You know?
And when did you realize you were doing it? You knew it was out there, but when did you realize it?
I mean, my first job out of college was at a newspaper,
Right.
which I realize now makes me sound 11,000 years old. But you know, so yeah, I got involved with journalism. You know, that was always the goal. The goal would be like get that full-time gig, you know, as a film critic. And then it turns out that I was like, well, you know, there are only so many of those gigs to go around, and you have to kind of establish yourself. And so I wound up doing kind of like, you know, festival jobs and other stuff like that. And I would kind of write on the side for, like, Dallas had and still has, I guess, a thriving LGBTQ plus paper called the Dallas Voice. So I was writing reviews and kind of a video column for them. But as I started doing festival stuff more and more, that I found really fulfilling and satisfying. And it was maybe a little easier to get work in that because you know, back in the day, once you know, film critics got their jobs at papers, they just stayed there until they died, you know, because you could. And then over the course of my career, I've seen the internet come in and the kind of the death of print journalism, and now it's like there are a handful of those positions left, and I am close friends with the people who have them. You know, like I'm in Los Angeles Film Critics, so I know Justin Chang, who writes for New Yorker, and I know Amy Nicholson, who's at the LA Times. But like, it is a very small group of people who get to do that for a living and nothing else. More and more you're seeing like they're freelancing, or they have a Substack going, or they podcast, or they do other things to sort of supplement that. But the amount
some of them write books, Alonso.
Sure, yeah. Well, and let me tell you, that's really where the money is. But so, you know, I think that, you know, the media landscape has changed so much just over the course of my life. And I know, granted, I am 11,000, but still, you know, daily newspapers all used to have film critics, and now the city of Chicago does not have a full-time film critic. Like they just laid off Michael Phillips, who was, you know, a national treasure, and so it's like, okay, so the city that once gave us Siskel and Ebert doesn't have a full-time film critic. So I've had to adjust, you know, over the years, and I'm still adjusting constantly.
Yeah, you have to. It's crazy because now also everyone can have a voice. It used to be you were vetted and you had to earn your position in order to do it. But now anyone who can get a microphone can have it or write, you know, online.
Yeah, no, the internet, you know, it's a good thing in that it certainly democratized the process. If people thought there was some sort of like ivory tower before, and in a lot of ways there were, I think, you know, we're only just now, you know, relatively recently getting to see, you know, more voices of women, people of color, of queer people, of the disabled community that didn't have access to sort of major media outlets in the past. And so that part of it is great. The lousy part of it is that rather than it being major media outlets giving those writers full-time gigs, it's those writers scrabbling together something resembling a living based on the outlets that are available to them, because the major media as we once knew it is no longer a thing.
Right. Yeah. And now it could be oversaturated. You don't know where to go, what's been vetted, what's not, where it used to be handed to you. So if it sounds glamorous, because it does, where you're, you know, essentially making a living for reviewing movies, becoming a critic, what is the biggest misconception then? Because it seems great that you're able to watch the movies, but there's a lot else going on there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I will acknowledge I am not a janitor in a slaughterhouse. Like I have a terrific job, and it's one that I worked very hard to get to, and I think that a lot of people aspire to. But like any other job, it has its downsides. In addition to the sort of, you know, ephemeral sense of being employed, you know, there are just
fleeting employment. Yeah, you're freelancing essentially always.
Totally, yeah. But then there's just also the thing of like, as my husband once described it, whenever you see an ad on TV or a trailer for a movie that looks just dreadful, and you think, ugh, I don't want to see that, I'm seeing it.
That's right. That's it. And you can't just leave. You have to watch the whole thing too.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. And then, you know, there's a thing called embargoes where if a big movie is coming out, even if some people might have gotten to see it earlier and some people maybe seeing it later, but the studio will say no reviews can run before like Wednesday morning at 9 a.m.,
Right.
and then often what will happen is they'll show you the movie on Tuesday night. And so you have to run home
Right.
and just like crank something out and, to be ready to have it pop at 9 because that's when all the other reviews are going to go up. And studios don't really talk to each other about this sort of thing. So
Oh, no.
especially as we get to the fourth quarter of the year, there's a lot of movies just on top of each other and you're having to juggle, just scheduling of when am I going to see this? When am I going to write about it? Am I going to post it in time? And again, I know these sound like if you're out there, if you're an EMT, these all sound like very precious problems, and I grant that they are. But yeah, it's not all free popcorn.
And has doing it for a living now for years, for decades, has that taken away or enhanced your love of movies? Because you said you were so fascinated by it at the beginning, but now sometimes making it become work is something that takes away.
I think the misconception about film critics is that they don't like movies, they're angry about movies, and they're frustrated filmmakers or whatever. But it's like, no, that the fact that we're willing to endure all of the stuff I just mentioned and whatever else, and the notion of like to deal with the possibility of burnout just goes to show that we really love movies. We live for that moment where we walk into a theater, maybe not knowing about a film, maybe not expecting much from it because the premise sounds dumb or it's from a director who's been disappointing in the past, and having this like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. And, there's that great feeling of revelation. Like I've seen something really special and I want to share that with people.
Right.
I think the other misconception is that critics enjoy crapping on movies, which if they do it, it's because they love movies so much that it's annoying to see one that is so flagrantly bad. But I think what we really live for is that moment of like, no, wait, drop everything, go see this film. It may change your life. It's so incredible.
And you never know till you see it. I mean, it's like
Absolutely.
that in so many different genres. Someone who's way into Burgundy wines, that's the talk, is the hunt, and then they finally find the perfect vintage. It's the same thing. And they'll, okay. So when you're doing that, when you have it, is there a moment where you're watching and you're saying, boy, I could do this myself? And have you wanted to then write your own movie or direct, or you're happy?
Oh God, no. I respect the work that goes into it so much and the passion that people have to have for it. Last night, in fact, I went to the LA premiere of a brilliant new documentary called Borman and the Devil, about the making of the film Exorcist II: The Heretic, which was, a legendary flop in its time, but now like has its champions. And on two levels, I really admire filmmakers. On the one hand, this movie is just about like the hard work that all of these people committed to this film that wound up being a laughing stock, that was, a commercial flop and a disappointment, and became like a punchline for decades. Also, my good friend Dave Kittredge directed this movie, and he's been working on it for the better part of the last decade. And I know how much work he has put into it and how much he's thought about it and sweated over it and, recut it and had, ideas and just sort of sleepless nights about getting this thing together. And I so admire that. I so admire the drive for that. And I just know that I don't have it. Like if I did, I'd be doing it already,
Right.
And I think, people look at a job like being a film critic or being a stand-up comic or being an actor or whatever. They think, oh, that sounds so cool. That sounds so awesome. But it's like, to get anywhere with that, you have to want it so much and you have to like just crawl through the muck for so long. With no one caring and no one paying attention and no one giving you any money for it, certainly, to get to that place where like you really get to do it as a job. And so,
and never knowing, if you will, if you go to plumbing school, you can be a plumber.
Exactly.
You can study movies, films, and journalism all your life and not end up doing anything, writing films or as a critic or anything. So it's wild. That's it. Well, good for you for doing it and sticking with it. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, I had no plan B. That's the
answer.
other. That's part of the whole passion thing. Is like there's also nothing else that you want to or even think you could do. So that's just that's been my sort of driving force. But yeah. So that I have such respect for filmmakers and people who do that stuff that I in no way think that I'm qualified to enter that arena.
Right, right. So, well, before we get to the book itself, I do want to know, so is there a movie, non-Christmas, well, it could be Christmas too, a movie that you absolutely love? You've seen some, and you said, this is a nearly perfect movie, but no one's seeing it. No one knows about it. That you're screaming, as Thoreau says, like a chanticleer on the rooftop, trying to wake everybody up and arouse them, that you're trying to say, this is something that everyone should see, but no one's seeing it, which must be frustrating. Is there a specific one?
Oh, there's a bunch. I mean, I think if you, I have been writing reviews professionally for the last 35 years or so. So yeah, I've accrued my sort of like unloved masterpieces along the way. A recent one that comes to mind, that's in the book, actually, it came out a year ago. It's called Christmas Eve in Miller's Point. And
Okay.
I really feel like nobody saw it in theaters because if you are if you were looking for like a Hallmark movie, it ain't that. And if you were
Right.
looking for the kind of beautifully intricate and subtle art house film that it is, you look at that title and think, ugh, Hallmark movie. And
Right,
so I
right.
feel like it's a film that people are going to be discovering over time. But
What is it called? I never even heard of it.
it's called Christmas Eve in Miller's Point.
Okay.
It actually debuted at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival. It had a
Okay.
brief theatrical release at the end of last year from IFC. It's now streaming. You can rent it places, and I think it might be on like AMC Plus.
Okay.
But it's this beautiful film about a family at some point in the early 21st century, all gathering at the house on Long Island. And what becomes subtly clear over the course of the film is this is the last time this is going to happen. The matriarch is ailing. People are sort of spreading off in other directions. This is really the last. They don't know it, but this is the last Christmas in this house.
Right.
And
Like Hallmark's The Christmas House, but good.
exactly, yes.
Right.
But what happens over the course of the film is that it for me, it pushes a lot of buttons just because it's a big house full of people at Christmas, which is what I grew up on. I was the youngest of 7 children, but it's also you have these individual moments with different characters where you realize you're going to remember this one thing for the rest of your life. And you see that with the older people, you see it with the kids, even the dog at one point, like looks out the window and there's a deer standing in the yard, and there's just a close up on the dog's face. You're like, yep, the dog is always going to remember this moment of Christmas.
Wow.
And it's such a accumulation of little moments and interplay like that the first time I saw it, I didn't know what the movie was about. I didn't know what to expect. And like the second it ended, without even realizing it, I just burst into tears.
Wow.
Because it's just such an accumulation of emotion and just so lovely. So yeah, that's one that I feel like a lot of people missed, and I'm constantly trying to
Wow.
push on to folks.
I will watch that this season. Wow, that's a good one. Thank you. I like that. And I did like The Christmas House, for the record. I just like to get the bust on Hallmark movies because that's what you do too. So you think I'm a cool critic? That's what I do. Yeah.
Hey, look, I wrote a whole book about Hallmark movies with the Hallmark guys. I have no like cultural cachet in that department.
Right.
I watch them all every year. I'm far too steeped in Hallmarkiana to pretend like I'm too cool for them.
Yeah, I have that book as well, actually, and
Good.
and I love the Hallmark movies. I watch them all, and then I try to act like I don't, but I like them all unironically. But what can I do?
They're very satisfying, and I always say this is a TV network that is owned by a greeting card company, and in the same way that like you get that beautiful snowy scene on a card, you put it up on the mantle, and you look up every so often, and you see that snowy scene, and think, oh yes, it's Christmas time. Like you put a movie on the Hallmark Channel, and you look up, and they're making cookies, or they're lighting a tree, or they're having a parade through town. You're like, oh, it's Christmas, And even if you're barely paying attention, and barely paying attention is often the best way to watch them, it just gives off that holiday sentiment, and that feeling of we're in it. This is happening right now, and so yeah, they know what they're doing, and they're very good at accomplishing the feelings that they want viewers to have.
Right. No, I really do enjoy them. And what Hallmark's done so great about it is make it where it's a big event. So we were all talking last week about the list coming out with all the new movies. So it's not just watching the movies, but it's the anticipation. And the list is the new harbinger of the season. It's the PSL comes, then the list, and you're in.
Yeah, Brandon at Deck the Hallmark and I are always like, is it today? Do we know? When's it coming out? And then
Yeah,
as
right.
soon as it does, like I have to go live with them. It's become a tradition because we have to immediately start digging into it and talking about what we're excited about, you know.
Yes, and I watched that with you guys doing the live after, and it
Oh,
was
thank
great.
you.
It was exciting, yeah. Especially for someone like me, I don't watch any football, so that was like, when people get the schedule, they're excited about it. This is just like,
I have said before, like, because I know a lot, I've seen film critics on social media who will like talk about baseball or talk about these other things. And so if somebody will goof on me about Hallmark, I'm like, it's my sports. It is my thing
exactly.
that is it's not directly related to what my main gig is, but it
Right.
gives me pleasure and I know far too much about, you know?
And it's interesting is you take on a whole slew of movies to watch then over and above what you have to do work-wise. So your fourth quarter must be insane.
Yeah, quarter four is always bananas because all the awards movies are coming out, and you know the Oscar deadline is December 31st, and you know, and I've got to write a top 10 list. So like there is this big influx of important long international cinema that I have to deal with in October, November, December, and then and on top of it, I'm like, oh, and I've also got these 24 Hallmark movies to watch.
Right. That's great. Right. About an angel who saves an ailing bookstore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are they going to tear down the bakery and make it a parking lot?
That's right. And then do you ever conflate the two and get confused, and then you're writing about a really serious movie and talk about the kiss at the end? Okay.
I will say no. I've never gotten the two conflated.
That would be funny though. But so let's get into the book itself, because when you first put this out, I do have my own copy right here, which is amazing. Oh, and by the way, anyone who gets it, a nice thing we're doing at the Christmas Cousins, we'll have Cousin Seth sign the copy for you. So what do you think about that, Alonso? I mean, talk about sales.
Wow.
Yes.
I feel like I've arrived now.
Yes, totally. Yes. So that's this scrolling at the bottom will tell you that. So this book, when you first did this 2010, which I believe is when Hallmark was just about starting, right? Their countdown to Christmas, or not even fully yet.
And I don't think they had fully gone there yet. But maybe they had, but in any event, even then it wasn't the thing it would become, you know?
Right. So what was it? Was it your idea? Did someone push you to it, or what was making you think of just this more narrow niche?
It was one that I'd had it rattling around my head for a while because, you know, I've always loved movies, obviously, and I've always loved Christmas. Thanks to, you know, my childhood, my mom always just made it great. And as a youngest child, because I was also very much a change of life baby, all of my siblings are like anywhere from 5 to 13 years older than me. So Christmas was like when everybody came home, you know, they'd be off at college or whatever. And so it was great just to have, again, the full house. So it had been knocking around in the back of my head that maybe there'd be a book in this, because over the years working for magazines and newspapers, invariably the holiday season would roll around and some editor would be like, could you make a list of, I don't know, Christmas movies that people maybe don't know are Christmas movies, or Christmas movies, you know, about bank robberies or whatever. And so I had done that enough where I had this sort of roster in my head of kind of oddball Christmas choices or genre specific Christmas choices. And it wasn't until I met the man who would become my literary agent at a film festival party in Dallas, where I used to work. And you know, he had seen my first book, 101 Must See Movies for Gay Men, and asked me, you know, was I working on anything else? And I said, well, I have this idea about Christmas movies. I don't know. And he immediately was like, no, that's actually a really great idea, because, you know, holiday books tend to you know, have legs.
It's an annuity. Every year they could pull it back out fresh. It's
absolutely
like the Uggs of the literary world.
Yes, it's like, you know, when the lights come out of the attic and my book comes you know, back on the podcast trail. So I that's, you know, he convinced me that it was worth giving it a shot. So I did a proposal, a sample chapter, all the stuff you have to do when you're trying to sell a book, and no one cared. No one responded to it. And I thought, okay, well, we tried. And then literally a year later, he goes, the one publishing company I didn't hear from last year wants to do it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So then I had to write it. And I did. And
so when it first came out, how was it? Was it well received in 2010? Because like you said, it wasn't as big in the cultural zeitgeist like holiday movies are now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is, like, if walk in any bookstore or any library and you just realize like the sheer number of books that exist in the world and the sheer number of new books that come out every month, like it's really hard to get noticed in all of that. And so yeah, at the time, I think I got some nice blog reviews, and I got a few mentions in some newspapers, but it was more kind of a word of mouth thing, and I was touring around and screening films and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, what really made that book successful enough for them to want to do another edition was the rise of the kind of Christmas media sphere that didn't exist then. I think maybe in 2010 the Christmas Stocking podcast has started, which is considered to be sort of one of the first ones.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't have all of these podcasts about Christmas in general, let alone Christmas movies.
Right.
And then I got to tip my hat to the Deck the Hallmark fans. I think when I did the book with them and that book was coming out, a lot of people, because Amazon sort of linked the two together, they would buy the Deck the Hallmark book, like, oh, I'll get his other one too. And that was the year that really kind of put me over the top and across the finish line. So I now actually do get some royalties for the first edition, which is nice, and hoping to get there again with this one. But yeah, that is so different, and I think over the years we've seen not just the rise of shows like this and things like the Hallmark phenomenon. I think really brought Christmas as a thing to a lot of people's attention. But I remember when the lockdown started and Hallmark would do these weekend-long Christmas marathons in like March and April.
Right.
And it was clearly like, y'all need some coziness stat, and you like these, and we're going to do this. And that was sort of my tip off of like, okay, they are acknowledging that there are quite a few of us out here who will watch these whenever,
Mm-hmm. I remember they did that, and I loved it. I was like, this is kind of what we needed at the time.
I was totally in for it. Sirius XM, I think that's when they started bringing back the Christmas stations at a time that wasn't Christmas. And then
people were putting lights up. Exactly.
Yeah. The whole everything, like people like Christmas is a thing that will get us through this, even though it's the springtime.
Right.
And now Sirius XM has, holiday traditions up all year long, and Hallmark Channel and Hallmark Mysteries will run at least one Christmas movie, if not two, like every Thursday or Friday night. And, I talk about this in the foreword of the book. My friend William Bibiani, who's a terrific film critic and podcaster, was like, hey, we should do a podcast about Christmas movies. I'm like, you're crazy. Who is going to be nuts enough to tune into that year round?
Right.
Like who is as crazy about this as I am? And it turns out a ton of people.
A lot of people, right.
I should have listened to him, but now at least I'm glad there's all these other shows and they're so generous about having me come on to talk about this.
Right. Yeah, you could have definitely been one of the OG podcasters if you had done it then. In what's called the BC of the podcast world, before Christmas Cousin.
Exactly.
I think that's generally what's referred to. Yes.
Oh, BCE, I think we call it now, but
yes, that's true. Let me update. Before the Christmas Cousin era, I think it is.
Boom. Yes, exactly.
Yes. So in terms of Christmas movies as a genre unto themselves, what is it that makes them just fascinating? It's obviously worthy of an entire book, but what is it? There is that, that intangible magic in them. Is it just that I don't know, it's nostalgia, but it's also a coziness. It's a taking away from your worries.
I mean, it's a mix of things. I think, when we talk about Christmas movies as a genre, it is a genre that encompasses all other genres. Mm. You can have a Christmas horror movie. You can have a Christmas action movie. You can have a Christmas musical, a comedy, a drama, a tearjerker, whatever it is that you want to see or that you're interested in or that you respond to, you can employ Christmas in telling that story. And I think there are a lot of different ways to do that. In a horror movie, usually it's that, Christmas is put up as the beautiful, innocent, time of peace and brotherhood. And so when people start getting stabbed, then it becomes, it's a more vivid contrast.
Yes.
I think in other ways, it's obviously a great backdrop for a redemption story going all the way back to Dickens, and I've jokingly said for years like that there's a line from Ebenezer Scrooge to George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, to Kevin McAllister in Home Alone. Like all of these guys they reach a low point. They resent the people around them. They are they're given a glimpse at an alternate life, and they come back stronger, more connected to their community, more connected to their family, and loving Christmas. And so, I think there's something about the redemption arc that ever since Scrooge is something that we come back to time and again in Christmas movies, but it doesn't have to be. It can be all kinds of different things, and you can just have Christmas part of that movie and still find the appeal of it.
Yeah, it's like an extra character. Because I watch a lot of movies, and I'll say to my wife, if this is decorated for Christmas, I'd probably stick with it, but I'm out of it. It's just lacking. That makes up for a lot of things in the movie that you wouldn't necessarily watch because the scenery is good, or it's snowing, or they're baking cookies. Inane dialogue is more interesting when you're drinking hot cocoa.
Absolutely. And I think it definitely encourages a sense of repetition where, like, if you see a movie that's, you liked it, it was fun, it was cute, and then you just forget that it ever existed. But if you see a movie that you liked and it's fun and it's cute and it's Christmas, then maybe next Christmas you'll revisit it again and again and again. And that turns these movies into a part of our life in a way that is distinct from other films, I think, because we keep coming back to it at a certain time of year to feel a certain way that we know it's going to make us feel. Yes. And I certainly respond to that. And I think that what's fascinating about that is that now you don't have to wait until Christmas for that to happen. Like there is this understanding on the internet that, yes, some people may think you're a weirdo, but some people have your back and will understand that, yes, who cares? It's July, it's April, whatever. I need to watch this movie. And if nothing else, as I say in the book, like there's just too much of this stuff, too many movies and too much great music to confine for that space between Thanksgiving and Christmas. You need the whole year to really get into all of it,
And that's interesting because inherent in the love of Christmas is you're not looking for new things every year. You're looking for traditions. You're looking for that continuity. So the fact that these movies have that and that they follow the formula is almost to their benefit without even necessarily planning on that, because we're not looking for things to be new. We're looking for them to be how they were maybe in another time, or maybe how we wanted them to be. So that's interesting.
Yeah, no, nostalgia is absolutely baked in. But I do admit, though, that part of my reasoning for doing the book in the first place, and certainly still is that I think sometimes people just want to like maybe shake up their repertoire. If every time the holidays roll around and you and your family are going to sit on the sofa and watch Elf and It's a Wonderful Life and A Christmas Story, great.
Have you been spying on us? How did you know?
Call it a hunch. Right. Maintain that tradition, but maybe like you want to mix it up a little. You want like to find some films that maybe star somebody that you really like, or are about or of a genre that you really enjoy but hadn't necessarily associated with Christmas. I liken it to and I've told this story before. I grew up in a house with 5 Christmas albums, so my world of Christmas music was Bing, Andy Dean, Perry Como, and the Boston Pops, and so then to later discover, Ella Fitzgerald and June Christie and, the Ray Conniff singers, whatever, I liked adding to my already solid repertoire. Do I still listen to Andy Williams every Christmas? You bet your boots I do. Of
course.
But I get to listen to this other stuff as well. So it's like, I'm not saying, abandon these movies that you've loved since childhood that bring you, that feeling of the season, but maybe you've got room for 1 or 2 more titles that you'll want to work in or rotate in and out from year to year, depending on how it goes.
That makes sense. And that's why you're saying it's too much to confine to a short time frame from Thanksgiving to Christmas, because there's ones you want to rewatch every year. Yeah. And then there's the new ones that you want to see. So are there ones that every season, or maybe you started earlier, we were like, all right, this is it. I have to watch this. So there are certain Hallmark ones I had that every year I know I'm rewatching these, even though I've seen them 100 times. So, and I know there's probably for you're saying no matter what I'm watching, It's a Wonderful Life, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, my husband loves Christmas, but he loves Christmas in
during Christmas,
the right time of year, and that it keeps me in check. So he and we have a handful of films that we always will watch. We always watch It's a Wonderful Life, and because we live in Los Angeles, we always watch it on the big screen with an audience, which is a delight. We always watch a comedy called Desk Set with Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy, where she works at she's the research librarian at a TV network in the 1950s, and he's installing a giant computer that she worries is going to put her and her staff out of work. That one's a lot of fun. We always watch White Christmas. And then, we'll kind of mix some other ones in and out. He's the one who introduced me to the 1970s Scrooge, which I'm a big fan of, that musical with Albert Finney. In recent years, we've started adding Spirited to the mix. So, we have ones that are definites and then ones that, year on, year off, depending on how it goes.
Are there any Hallmark ones that have entered the canon that every year you have to rewatch? Because I have some.
Oh,
I won't admit which ones. But
for me, yes. Like I will watch Two Turtle Doves every year. I think that one's really a lovely. Nikki DeLoach and Michael Rady. I'm a big fan of Crashing Through the Snow.
That's a good one.
I think that's really funny. And I love the Hanukkah movie Round and Round.
That was fantastic.
A Hallmark movie so good that even my husband liked it, and he cannot stand Hallmark.
Really?
Movies. Yeah, but he thought Round and Round was really funny and charming. So
it was fun. Yeah. What do you think about? I have a few favorites myself. Maybe you've probably seen them. Small Town Christmas. That's the one with Chris Palaha. He owns a bookstore.
The bookstore, right.
Yes. Opening, he kind of does. Actually, he does kind of a very
little George Bailey there. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. What do you remember that one? I watch that one every year.
I remember it. It's in the book that I did with the Deck the Hallmark guys. It is. I think he and Ashley Newborough are have good sort of Hallmark chemistry, and there I do love. A small town where everyone rallies to save the bookstore. As a writer, I gotta love that. There's a fun villain in this movie. Like there's this guy who they set up as like the possible sort of competition for the female lead, and it's like not this guy. Like not next to Palaha. Don't even try and the developer this backstory is not going to last 10 seconds. But yeah, no, it's fun. I totally get the appeal there.
So are there any classic movies, let's go on the converse side, that absolutely drive you nuts? And don't worry, I won't tell Santa. It's all your secret's safe here. I'm not even recording.
Not that I like that drive me nuts, but there are ones that like I'm not personally a giant fan of, but I see why people love them. Like I don't love National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, I like there's some solid jokes, and I think it's some of the most insight we ever get into Clark Griswold as a character and what drives him. We get in that movie, but it's just not totally my thing. I've had to explain to people where if you love Love Actually, I know why. And if you hate Love Actually, I also know why. And
I've never seen it actually.
Oh, it's
actually.
I don't know how it would play on a first view now, because I think some of the things about it to which some people object, and again, they're not wrong. It has a definite sort of, let's call it a pre-Me Too mentality. There are a lot of love stories in this movie that are about men who fall in love with their employees. So, you have to take that for what it's worth. But at the same time, it's like, it's that Richard Curtis wit, and it's a dazzling sort of just like London at Christmas time is this wonderful bauble, and Emma Thompson crying. I guess it's got a lot of stuff that rewards repeat viewings. But again, if you are like critic Lindy West or people who are very vocally anti-Love Actually, I get where you're coming from as well. So I'm Switzerland on that one.
Interesting. Okay, so I'll have to see if I'm going to watch that one. So. Right. That's good. So if you had just a few more questions for you.
Sure.
So now you're in charge of this channel, and it's called Christmas Movie Perfection. It's a working title.
Okay.
What were like the 5 films? Now we've had you on before where you gave Cousin Seth during his journey to find Christmas, and you gave him 5 movies to watch, and he did watch them throughout the season. And you even came back and report he gave you his homework.
Yes.
So are there 5 movies that you would start with that you said, this is my channel, this is the Mount Rushmore of Christmas movies, and what would they be if so?
Oh man, I hate this question.
Yes,
No,
I love that.
This is like Daniel is using a hard time with this because I hate ranking things, but
and it narrows you into a corner. So now you're like, well, you said it, yeah.
Off the top of my head, and I'm going to try and go for like 5 very different kinds of films, just to sort of like. These are not my Mount Rushmore, but these are like, I'm going to throw these at you as an indication of like how different Christmas movies can be, how broad a range they can cover.
And can Hallmark make the list? This is what I want to know. Can a Hallmark movie slip in? Picture
No.
a Perfect Christmas with Paula Shaw, rest in peace. One of my favorites.
Well, and she's great in Round and Round too, actually.
Yeah,
No,
she reminds me
R.I.P.
of my own Bubby, which I was very sad to hear her passing. But anyway,
I know, but no, she had a terrific career. I kind of church and state it with Hallmark and like quote unquote real movies. I think they're operating on different tracks. So just going on actual movies, just to blow people's minds and have them go, what? These are Christmas movies? You would do this on a channel, but I would do this on a channel just to try and like, again, cover as wide a ground as possible. So we'll start with It's a Wonderful Life, of course, but then we'll go with Bob Clark's 1974 Black Christmas, which is a pioneering Christmas slasher movie from the man who would later direct A Christmas Story, by the way.
Really? Okay. Yes. Interesting. Okay. I've never seen that one.
Then I'm going to throw in a French film called A Christmas Tale, which is
we're cheating. I think it has to be confined to out. No, just kidding.
It's a French family comedy drama starring Catherine Deneuve and a really great ensemble cast.
And what's it called?
A Christmas Tale.
A Christmas Tale. Okay.
Yeah.
When did this come out?
In the 2000s, I want to say it's on the. I'm pretty sure it's on the Criterion channel. The Criterion definitely put out a Blu-ray of it.
Okay.
Then Eyes Wide Shut. Why not? Stanley Kubrick's drama about a sexually frustrated marriage, because that movie is so insanely Christmassy. If you haven't seen it in a while and you think, what am I talking about? Go back and look at it.
Really?
It is at nearly Hallmark level of making sure that every shot has trees or twinkle lights or like Nicole Kidman wrapping presents. There is something holiday, except for the orgy. But the rest of the movie, everything is Christmas throughout.
They save that to the end, like Hallmark movies.
Of course, yes.
Right. Yeah.
And then we'll cap it off with what the heck? Christmas in Connecticut with Barbara Stanwyck.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. That's interesting. I would not have guessed that. I mean, I would have guessed it probably, of course, but I don't know that the other people, where your casual viewers, would have. So,
heavens no.
As we go on, so again, we're talking about the revised and updated Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas with Alonso Duralde. I have my own copy right here. Like I said, of course, we can get Cousin Seth to sign a copy for you. Just
Please
let us know. So just to end it, what is your plan for the future? Are there more books? There are more podcasts? What is your plan and even for this holiday season, both fun and professionally?
Yeah, I mean, for this holiday season, believe me, I am. Somebody asked me, "Oh, are you going on tour?" And I said, "If you mean, am I going on as many podcasts as will have me? Then yes."
Right.
So I will be doing a lot more of these, and I thank each and every one of you, especially Cousin Seth, for giving me the airspace to do so. I hope people who are fans of these shows are not sick of my voice by the end of the year. So I'll be doing a lot of that. I'm going to Christmas Con in December.
Okay.
I'm going to be
up in Jersey. Okay.
Yeah, in Edison. I will be selling copies of the book and hanging out with the Deck the Hallmark guys. In fact, I'm going to fly into Greenville and road trip up to Jersey with them.
Really? You guys can drive right past me in North Carolina. You have to swing by, get the hot cocoa bar on the way up. That would be a good way to start your trip.
Don't tease me with a good time.
And you know who else will be there? Joe, the Christmas aficionado, which as you know, he will be there with his perfect hair, which I
of course.
I love.
Yeah. And will he even bother bringing his like cool hand carved, Hallmark wooden sign? Because I think everybody signed it at this point.
That's right. I think he's going to be wearing it like a Flavor Flav emblem.
There we go. Like a sandwich board. Yes. No, we've already made plans to hang out up there. So and then I always have a couple of sort of book ideas floating around, but I have to sort of tackle them to the ground at some point and go through the thing of like, all right, create that, the pitch and start really digging into it. And nothing has set me on fire enough to do that yet. But, in the meantime, I have, after this year is over, every June I will be out there talking about Hollywood Pride, and every December I will be out there talking about Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas. So I've got like those 2 months of the year is on lockdown. Right.
Yeah. You just need a fall and spring book and you're set. You don't never have to work again. That's it. Yeah. That is amazing.
Your mouth to whoever's ear.
That's right. That's it. Well, Alonso, thank you again very much to our 47 million daily listeners. Go pick up a copy of Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas. Get the old edition and then get the revised and updated.
I'll tell you, There's a lot of new stuff in the new edition. So if you already have the old one, you're going to discover a lot of new things, like more than 100 new titles that are in the new edition. Wow. But I had to keep the book sort of the same size. So a lot of stuff that's in the first book got shrunk down to sort of see also in the second one. Right. So if you want the full experience, yes, by all means pick up both. But in the meantime, definitely get the new one.
Right. Okay. And as you see my background, I actually have the cover behind me.
I appreciate that.
Alonso, it took me all day. Yes. So everybody check that out. Alonso, is there anything else you want to plug as we wrap it up here?
Sure. If people want to read my reviews of new movies, they can go to The Film Verdict. And then I'm also irritatingly ubiquitous in the podcast space. My husband, Dave White, and I have a show called Linoleum Knife that we're about to hit our 15th anniversary on. Wow. I do Breakfast All Day with Christy Lemire on YouTube and also as a podcast. I'm on the Maximum Fun show, Maximum Film. And then I pop into Deck the Hallmark once a week to talk about non-Hallmark, non-Lifetime Christmas movies.
Yes. And I think you should bring back the 25 weeks of Hallmark where you assigned to Bran and then he assigned to you. I love that series. That was a lot of fun to get us through that half of the year too. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that I would just have to submit to him pulling another 13 movies I don't want to watch. But I did enjoy forcing him to see things like foreign films and documentaries. Exactly. That is why I was put on this earth, to make Brandon Gray expand his cinematic horizons, whether he wants to or not.
That's right. And we'll leave it off that. Yeah, well, after this podcast, Alonso, it's all downhill. I mean, you've reached the top of the mountain. Now.
What is left, frankly, after the attack?
Well, the crowd's excited and live studio. Thank you, everybody. Go check it out. Have yourself a movie Little Christmas. And of course, you can check us out, Christmas Cousins Pod on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Alonso. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Happy holidays.
Same to you.